Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Madison. My name is Ros Woodward. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a member of this congregation, and one of the ways I volunteer here is as a worship associate, helping to lead worship services along with our ministers. Today, I'm joined by the Reverend Kelly Asprooth-Jackson and by the worship team of Linda Warren and Stephen Gregorius. A special thanks to all those volunteering in the many roles today: greeters, ushers, hospitality providers, lay ministers, and sound technicians. At First Unitarian Society, we question boldly, listen humbly, grow spiritually, act courageously, and love unapologetically. If you're visiting us, welcome. We're so very glad to see you're with us. If you'd like more information about the First Unitarian Society, please stop by the welcome table located just outside the Commons to the left, or to my left there. We hope you'll be able to stay and join us for coffee hour immediately after the service, also in the Commons. And a word about what's going on. You should have been handed a piece of paper before you got into the auditorium. If you don't have one, they're available, you can get them. There's still time to pick one up. For those of you at home, we encourage you to write something down on a piece of paper. It's a thought, feeling, or experience that you wish to let go from the year that's just passed. You can dispose of it in your own way if you're at home. Just be careful to make sure that there's a grown-up involved. if you're going to use fire. Any time between now and immediately after the service, you're invited to deposit your piece of paper in the jar provided at the front here. Reverend Kelly will be taking the jar outside to ceremoniously burn away all those things that need letting go of. And if you'd like to join him outside to witness or help with the burning, you're more than welcome. For those connecting with us virtually today, we're glad you're with us as well. And we hope you'll be able to take a moment to watch the announcements slides after today's service to learn about upcoming programs and activities. And now I invite you to join me in a moment of silence to center ourselves and bring ourselves together into this time as we join once again in community. Suspended between all that was and all that might be, we struggle to find this very moment, to live this very moment.
Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence. The bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of achievement are but experiences of time.
Let us sit together and savor this moment. Let us relish this between time where past meets future. Let us harbor a faith that reminds us that right now, right here, is enough.
For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. And today, well lived, makes yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Such is the salutation to the ever-new dawn. And now I invite you to rise in all the ways that we do, and join me in the words of aspiration for the kindling of our chalice flame. We gather at this hour in the lineage of our ancestors, in anticipation of our descendants, in the presence of each other, and now in the light of this chalice flame. And now I invite you to reach out to those around you with signs of love and peace.
I forgot my prop.
Oh. Friends, let's join together in singing hymn number 1000 in your teal hymnal or on the screen. Morning has come. There we go. Morning has come. Arise and greet the day. Dance with joy and sing a song of gladness. The light of hope is shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home. A new day dawns, once more the gift is given. Wonder fills this moment shared together. The light of peace here shines. kind of tell you this story this morning. Most of the stories that I tell you usually come from a particular place or community or a religious tradition or a cultural canon. This is by a particular person. But it's sort of a modern fable, if you will. So this is a story about a child, and this particular child we happen to have chosen the name Peter for. It's arbitrary, could be any name, really could be your name if you wanted it to be. And this particular child struggled with something maybe some of us can relate to. Peter had a lot of trouble focusing on right here and right now. When it was here and now, like it is right now, here and now, his mind was always over here, or over there, or just generally somewhere else. Maybe he was thinking about what happened yesterday. Maybe he was thinking about what he was going to have for lunch. He was just always mentally somewhere else. And he was always thinking about, the next thing I'm going to do, the next year of my life, the next grade in school. And so he didn't really stop to appreciate the things that he was doing and the things that were going on around him. And one day he was walking through the woods and he encountered a very wise old woman. She greeted him by name. She knew his name even though they had never met before. And she held up a golden thread that was hanging from a spool. Right? It was all wound around the spool, but it was hanging down. And she said to him, Peter, this thread is your life. Naturally, it unspools, it unfurls very slowly. But if you pull on it, it'll move even faster than it already does. So it's up to you how fast you get to move through your life. And she handed him the spool. Peter thought this was a very interesting idea. He wasn't sure if he took it seriously or not, but, worth a try, right? So he pulled on it. And just like that, in a zip, it was 3 years later. He'd gone from being in early elementary school to late elementary school. Suddenly, he was done with practicing his cursive, so his handwriting was never going to get better, it seems like. And he was in a whole new area of experience, a whole new time of life. He was a whole foot taller. Well, that was interesting. But he looked around, and it seemed like pretty much the same sort of thing, wake up in the morning, eat breakfast, you go to school, you come home, you do your homework, you eat dinner, you go to bed. Okay, all right. Well, let's see what comes next. So he pulled on it some more. This time he zipped all the way ahead to when he was in his late teens. He had a driver's license now. He was in high school. He was getting ready to think about what might come after high school. And, another 1.5 feet or so in height. And just generally, it was a pretty different time of life. But then there were things that were still the same. He still had to listen to his parents about a lot of things. He still didn't get to make his own schedule the way that he might want to. So he thought, all right. Let me skip a little bit further ahead. And whoop, zip. Now he was later into life. He had a job. He had a family. He had children of his own. It was a very different way to be. He had some whiskers on his chin. But there were still things that he had to do, still things that he didn't have real choices about, still a sense of not really being in control in the way that he wanted to be in control. So he pulled on the string again, and this time he gave it a real hard tug because now he was all the way into retirement. He'd skipped over the whole body of his career. His children were adults now. They'd grown up and gone off to start families of their own. And now he felt like, I can make my own choices. I can make my own schedule. There's not a lot of people telling me what to do anymore, but I feel like I missed something. And he went for a walk in the woods again, like he had when he was younger, just sort of thinking about all the things that he missed now. And he got to be pretty tired, so he sat down for a spell and he fell asleep. And when he woke up, he heard his mother calling him. He woke up and he was like 3 feet shorter than he had been when he went to sleep. He was a child again, just the same age he'd been that day that he met that wise old woman. And he realized that he had a chance now to try and do it again and to not skip ahead so much anymore, to do the things in the order that they were meant to happen, at the rate that they were meant to happen, and focus on what was happening right now. Sing again, shall we? We're going to do Ring Out Wild Bells, which is number 58. Yes? Yeah, 58. Let's please rise in body and or spirit.
The words of inspiration are written by Kathleen McTeague. Not far from where I work, there's a little hole-in-the-wall cafe, a good place to pick up a quick lunch. You have to be in the mood for soup, however, because all this place serves is soup, accompanied by a homemade bread roll. You also have to be feeling open-minded and flexible, because there's only one kind of soup made fresh each day. Though sometimes you can have yesterday's soup at a reduced price. The woman who works behind the counter always looks glad to be there, doing what she's doing, and often she knows her customers by name. Last week, there were 6 people waiting in line to be served, but she still lingered with an old man at the counter who already had his soup and bread in a paper bag. She asked after his health, and then asked after his wife. She commiserated with him when he told her about their illnesses. When she said goodbye, she touched his hand lightly, smiled into his face, and told him she'd look for him tomorrow. It was a wonderful thing just then to be marooned on this little island of calm amidst the impatience, irritability, and general craziness of life, in a place where someone makes her living by patiently shaping and then serving 2 of the world's most basic and nourishing foods. It can't be easy to make a living and it's surely no way to get rich. But there is serenity in the woman's face and a gentleness in her voice when she invites you to make the one simple choice available here: butter roll or rye. Watching her work, it's easy to believe that some small corner of the world's fabric is being patiently, lovingly stitched back together, and that something more gets carried out the door than a bag of bread and warm soup.
Here's to the new year. May she be a damn sight better than the old one, and may we all be home before she's over. This is a quotation from a rather strange episode of the American sitcom MASH, which is at once both a screwball comedy and a tragic drama about the staff of an American Army field hospital during the Korean War. The episode opens with the characters celebrating on New Year's Eve, 1950. The conflict has only been underway officially for 6 months, and while war is hell, a truism that the program was determined never to let its audience forget, the mood at the start of 1951 is festive and hopeful. The remainder of the episode spans the entirety of a year in small vignettes, both light and dark. A memorable bet is lost and won. Lives are saved and lost. In the final moments of the story, we come to New Year's Eve, 1951. Again, the commanding officer rises to give his toast and speaks those same words. Here's to the new year. May she be a damn sight better than the old one. May we all be home before she's over. The words are identical, but after a year of conflict, their tenor is obviously different. Here, within just a few days of the start of another new year, we are in the midst of the perennial spirit of renewed promise, the changing of the guard as one year departs and a different one arrives. Our cultural practice of making New Year's resolutions tells us that we all have a fresh start, a new chance to get things right. Whatever it was that you did or didn't do in the old year, now's the time to make things different in the new. To spend more time at the gym, read more books, give more generously to causes that we believe in, or make more real our priority to our loved ones or to our own happiness. We each have a clean slate, so the story goes, and may write upon it what we will. My message to you this morning is that in the midst of all of this coming and going, the slate is not quite clean. That the past is not so gone from the equation as the euphoric oblivion of New Year's Eve would suggest. And that, though it may come as some surprise, the less than utter blankness of the year just started is a blessing and not a curse. In the time of ancient Greece and subsequently in the Roman era, the leading material on which long and important documents were written was called pergamene. That substance was named, as it happens, for the city of Pergamum on the northwest coast of what is today Turkey. Those of you who are well prepared for pub trivia questions about the book of Revelation in the Christian scriptures may recognize Pergamum as the location of one of the 7 churches of Asia to which that book as a letter is addressed. Pergamene is made from animal skin, almost always from a sheep or a goat. It is therefore costly and difficult to produce, ludicrously so compared with modern paper, but still markedly more expensive than other options used by contemporary and earlier societies in other places. The clay tablets of Mesopotamia or the paper-like papyrus scrolls of Egypt were not nearly so hard to come by as pergamene. Because it was so precious, there was a strong incentive to reuse pergamene, either when whatever was written on it was no longer deemed important, or when it was in very short supply, and what was written on it was judged not to be important enough. The method for erasing text on a scroll of pergamene evolved over time, and by the Middle Ages, a technique had been settled on which was decisive and permanent. It entailed scratching off the ink altogether. But in the period of the Greek and Roman empires, the approach was somewhat gentler, less scratching and more washing. It left more of the animal hide intact, allowing for a greater number of revisions and longer-lasting piece of material overall. The trade-off was that the erased text was sometimes legible behind the new writing. Usually not at first, but as the age set in, the earlier work would start to become visible again. This wasn't of much benefit to the ancients, but for modern historians, it has been a crucial asset. A document with more than one layer of text like this is called a palimpsest, from the Greek word palimpsestos, meaning scraped clean and ready to be used again. In just one example, the Codex Rephaim Rescriptus, an important early copy of the Christian Bible, survives today only because it was cleaned imperfectly and recycled in order to carry the words of a now obscure Christian theologian. A palimpsest contains one message, but shows through the earlier truth of what is underneath. Our minds and our hearts work in much the same way. Often we tell ourselves and each other to let go of the past, to start fresh, to focus on the possibility of what is new and different. Nothing behind me, everything ahead of me, as is ever so on the road, in the famous words of Jack Kerouac. And indeed, in order to live and to grow, we must face forward enough to move into what is next. But the past is always with us. We can never fully erase it from who we are or from time itself. Even the moments and events and people that we have forgotten are with us still, a hidden part of how we reached this now. Sometimes the prior lines show through. Sometimes we remember suddenly, viscerally, some scrap of what had been that we thought we had already put away forever. Those memories can be fond or frightening or both. There is often pain in the past, and the fact that it is always somehow with us does not feel like a mercy. But though it can be hard, it is good that it is so. For without it, we could not be who we are or become who we must be. The prospect of a new beginning is a common promise in religion, and I do not mean that it is a false one, only that it is more complicated than we often give credit to. In Genesis, in the Hebrew Bible, we read the story of a flood that drowns the whole world, creating a fresh start from which everything must begin again. But the break is not so clean as we might think of it being on the surface. The species of the earth, including humankind, survive aboard Noah's Ark. And everything that lives in the water has rather an uneventful time of it, so far as the narrative seems to be concerned. Going further, there is a tradition, entirely non-biblical, but a popular folk belief, that the character of Goliath, who appears later in the Bible, is descended from the Nephilim, cruel giants born of illicit relationships between angels and human beings. These Nephilim are the chief complaint listed in the story of the flood. If there was anything that was meant to be gotten rid of by those rising waters, it was them. Yet, the quality in us, which both Goliath and the Nephilim are metaphors for, the capacity of human beings to be inhumane towards each other and to use our powers recklessly and selfishly, remains. Similarly, in the letter to the Galatians, attributed to the evangelist Paul in the Christian scriptures, he closes his remarks by returning to his theme of a new creation, the new spiritual possibility he sees in his personal understanding of the teacher Jesus. For him, this undoes what has gone before. Old religious obligations are cast aside and no longer need to be considered. But in the very next line, the second to last of his letter, he writes, "From now on, let no one cause me trouble, for I bear on my body the marks of Jesus." Paul has, by this time in his career, been persecuted a great deal for his preaching and his faith. He has been imprisoned and beaten multiple times. His body literally does carry marks on it, the result of his sense of religious mission. These are a part of a past he could not imagine washing away. So while the idea of a new beginning is essential to his spirituality, it is not as though all things past must fade. Clearly, for him, it is selective. Now, you may know that in Islam, it is an obligation to pray towards the city of Mecca in what is today Saudi Arabia. But people live in Mecca, and millions of pilgrims travel there each year. There is a deeper, more specific center than just the city in the abstract sense. Inside the city, inside the Masjid al-Haram, the holiest site in Islam, lies the Kaaba. Literally, it means the cube. And it is, in fact, a sizable black box with 4 perfectly even and equally angled sides. Everywhere else in the world, when Muslims line up to pray together, they appear to be standing, bowing, and kneeling in straight lines. But around the Kaaba, those lines become circles. That structure existed at the time of Muhammad, and according to the Muslim tradition, it was rebuilt from an earlier structure made by the patriarch Abraham and his son Ishmael, which was itself a rebuilding of yet another structure set up by Adam, the first human himself, all on the same site. Its mythic continuity is very important religiously. And that continuity is not damaged or disrupted at all by the recorded fact that the Kaaba has been repaired and restored and rebuilt numerous times over the 14 centuries since Muhammad. This includes dramatic events. The meteorite, which is itself the center of the Kaaba, was stolen by religious extremists in the year 930 and was not returned again until 22 years later, as well as minor alterations, such as the gold rainwater spout that was installed in 1627. Countless rebuilding projects, countless new beginnings, still the same site, the same history, the same building as an idea, at least, if not a literal set of materials. The comedian Zora Bikangaga tells the true story of his own attempt at a fresh start. See, he grew up in California, the son of immigrant parents from Uganda. When he was getting ready to go to college, a small school where he would be one of a relatively small number of black students, his friends convinced him to play a trick on his prospective white roommate. Speaking on the phone for the first time before they met, he put on a faux African accent in order to play into his roommate's assumption that someone with a name as interesting as his must be from somewhere else. He always intended to let him in on the prank when they met in person, but things snowballed. It became surprisingly, strangely, bewilderingly easy for him to keep up the ruse. No one seemed to see through it, no matter how many obvious contradictions he had to quickly explain, such as his deep knowledge of American television and dance moves, or why someone newly arrived from Uganda would have a thoroughly used American automobile. Not even the actual international students, who were actually from Africa, called him out on this, possibly because there weren't any actual Ugandans in their cohort. So he just kept doing it, talking in an accent that he based on a caricature of his own father's voice, regaling his new friends and classmates with stories that combined actual experiences that he had had visiting family in Uganda, actual tales from his parents' life, and segments from one of his favorite movies, Eddie Murphy's Coming to America, in which the prince of an imaginary African nation goes to New York and pretends to be a poor foreign student. Zora found a certain freedom and comfort in this new persona. It insulated him a bit against the assumptions and projections he faced. And in any case, they weren't actually about him, those assumptions. Eventually, he realized that though he was meeting a lot of new people and acquiring a lot of people who thought of him as a friend, they were not relating to him. They were relating to a character that he had invented in order to try out being for a little while. Finally, after nearly a semester, Zora did drop the accent and the pretense. It required a sort of coming out to each of his friends individually as a born American, a Californian, and then a letter published in the school newspaper. The fresh start of college that had made Zora's prank, which became a coping strategy, possible, still left him with his old self to return to, and gratefully so. My friends, the events of the year that is now passing away are still with you and with us, no matter how fresh and new the next year appears to be. We are saying goodbye to the old and hello to the new all at once, but what is with us remains with us, regardless. The books that you did not read, the wealth that you did not share, the time you did not take, the push-ups you did not do. All of these things are still true. And it is because of them that you have the power now to make new choices, if such choices need making. Now you may, if you have strayed from it, return to the home of your spirit. Set out to be more fully who you are, or who you need to become. So then, here's to the new year. May it be a damn sight better than the old one, and may we all be home before it's over.
I invite you into this time of giving and receiving, where we give freely and generously to this offering which supports and sustains the ideals we hold dear. All of our gifts from this and all the other services throughout the holiday season provide a great deal of the funding that runs Just Dane's eviction prevention program. Sometimes the difference between a family being out on the street or staying in their home can be a little help with the rent. With your help, Just Dane and Joining Forces for Families are helping people to prevent eviction and homelessness. There are multiple ways to share your gifts this morning. Baskets are now being passed in the auditorium for cash or checks, or you can donate directly from our website, fusmadison.org, and you'll see on the screen our new text to give information. We thank you for your generosity and your faith in this life we create together.
Each week we gather, carrying in our hearts the joys and the losses of our days. We hold our own pain and celebration together with the ones we love. We share these here, knowing they are held gently, in care and in support and in love. We light a candle of deep grief at the death of Owen Bradley Emanuelson, who celebrated his first birthday on December 15th and died unexpectedly on December 18th. Our hearts go out to parents Cece and Eric, grandmother Barbara, and all other members of Owen's family. In the depths of loss, where there are no words, may there be still the company of others who have lost as well. We light a candle to celebrate the life and to mourn the death of Liz Wessel, who passed from life last week. Liz was a passionate environmental activist, a member of this congregation, and a beloved human being. May her memory be for a blessing. We light a candle for all those who feel isolated by grief, by chronic pain, by mental illness, and all others who are alone and lonely. To you we extend our compassionate hearts. We light a candle of ongoing lament for the violence which plagues our world. Fervently we yearn for peace here at home and around the globe. And we light a candle for all those joys and sorrows, hopes and dreams that remain unspoken in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. I invite you now to turn with me both inward and outward as we enter together into an attitude of meditation and of prayer with these words from Kyle Johnson. O Spirit that moves in all things, great mystery, whose reach spans beyond the cold, distant edges of our universe, and yet is present within the vast subatomic emptiness, coursing through every fiber and every breath of our being and through being itself. Help us to see the miracle in the mundane, to see the crystal stars, the shape-shifting clouds, the patient trees, to see each other through fresh eyes. For it is so easy to forget what we truly are and what we've been given. As we move through our lives, let us remember to see through the mundane to the miracle beneath, and to perceive that common substance that gives birth to our myriad forms. That mystery that spans beyond the edges of the universe and yet infuses our next breath. And let this foundational awareness guide us on our paths as we work towards peace and fight for justice, while always informed by a spirit of compassion. May it be so. Amen. Together in our closing hymn, which is number 9 in your silver and gray hymnals, No Longer Forward Nor Behind. Number 9. May you awaken to the mystery of being here and enter the quiet immensity of your own presence. May you have joy and peace in the temple of your senses. May you respond to the call of your gift and find the courage to follow its path. May warmth of heart keep your presence aflame and anxiety never linger about you. May your outer dignity mirror an inner dignity of soul. May you take time to celebrate the quiet miracles that seek no attention. May you experience each day as a sacred gift woven around the heart of wonder. Blessed be. Go in peace, and please be at rest for the postlude.